Now we're at lecture 2.2. The purpose of this lecture is to introduce and explain the annotated bibliography assignment, to also discuss MLA and APA formatting because that plays a huge role in this annotated bibliography, and then to demonstrate how to do proper citations for academic articles and begin to give you an idea of how to cite other sources. So, remember that our annotated bibliography assignment asks you to locate 2 academic articles that you will use for your argument paper. You are welcome to use more than 2, but you must use at least 2. So you're going to read them, and when I say annotate, we'll talk about the distinction between annotated bibliography and doing these annotations in just a moment. You're going to mark up the page, you're going to make sure you really understand these articles. Once you fully understand the articles and you've read them all, then you are going to write just one paragraph for each of the articles. And that paragraph is going to describe the main purpose of the article, summarize the major findings, and then explain how might you use this as a source in your own paper that you are working on. So let's talk about this. So remember we talked about we want to annotate an article as we're reading. That means that we're using a tool, maybe an Adobe Acrobat or just paper and pen or maybe a tablet to write as you read with questions, ideas, and comments. And so in that context, annotation means the marks that you make on the page while you read and write. However, annotated bibliography uses a totally different meaning of annotation. So an annotation in this context is a formal paragraph of information about a source. And the purpose is to summarize the meaning of it and show how you're going to use it potentially for a research paper or for a project. The word bibliography is just another word for works cited or your references page. And that's that list of all the sources you use that comes at the end of a paper that you write. And so when we say annotated bibliography, we mean that you are going to turn in a formal document that has a citation for some article that you read that's academic, followed by a paragraph that discusses the major findings of that paper and how you're going to use it in your own research. So here's an example of what an annotated bibliography looks like. If you are using this is actually APA format, and the reason we know that is because it puts the date immediately after the author's name and in parentheses. So annotated bibliography, you have your citation right here for the source, and then you have your short paragraph that describes the contents of the article. Here's an example of an annotated bibliography in MLA, and you see that the date comes later on. So let's just jump to the annotation part, the paragraph part, because we'll talk about the citations in just a moment. So if you go back to our assignment sheet, it says that you are going to write a substantial paragraph for each article that describes its main purpose, which means you're going to have to read the whole thing and totally understand that, summarizing the ideas and explain how to use it. This just means that you really need to read those carefully so that you know what you're talking about. Maybe you read it twice. Maybe you'd make a map of it. And then you write up your summary and the findings and explain, I might use this to talk about this thing in my paper. I want you to focus on using strong verbs to describe what the papers are doing. So here's example verbs. If you are trying to discuss what an author is doing in an academic paper, these are really good suggestions. So an author might emphasize, claim, speculate, study, demonstrate, state. All of these are much better than the author says or the author does. So I'm asking you to really use these words to make better sense of what your article is doing. Now, here's the less fun part. How do we make those annoying formatted citations that go above the paragraph of information? So in this class, I'm giving you the opportunity to use MLA, which is the Modern Languages Association, and that is the formatting scheme that English and humanities in general use. Though that's not the case for really philosophy or history. They use Chicago, which I prefer. I don't really like MLA, but it is something that you've usually been doing since high school. And so if you're very comfortable with MLA and you really like it, you are welcome to use it. However, APA is the formatting structure that's used in most of the hard sciences, most of the social sciences, in business, and more. So you're rarely going to use MLA outside of English. And if you want to challenge yourself to try to work on this, for example, if you were in a nursing major or if you were doing biology or something along those lines, you will likely be using APA later on in your college career. So for any formatting, whether that's MLA, APA, or whatever the case may be, there are three main things that go along with the formatting. Well, that go along with the paper. The first is the formatting, which just means what does it look like? Is there a title page? Are there headers? The next thing is in-text citations. As you are writing the actual paper, how do you give credit to the sources that you're using? So you are backing up your information with evidence, giving credit to the sources. And then the final part that we're really going to focus on today is at the end of the paper, you list all of the information about a specific source in some very particular orders. And so with MLA, we call this page a works cited page. With APA, we call it references, but it means the same thing. So if you are going to format a citation for your works cited page, it's going to be different than if you were doing references. So different from MLA. And also if you're creating a citation for an article as opposed to a book, those things are different. Or if you're creating a citation for a website versus a YouTube video, those are different. So it can be somewhat complicated, but there are tons of resources both in this slideshow, which you have access to, and also online in the library and by contacting me. So the thing to remember though is that when you are creating these citations, you must follow the format listed very specifically. You have to use italics when it says italics, periods when they use periods, commas when they use commas, and parentheses when they use parentheses. I remember getting an A- on a paper because I didn't use a comma correctly in one of my citations in a Renaissance history class in 2007. I'll never forget it. Okay, so this page is available to you on the course slides, and I highly suggest that you go and click on both of these. If you're going to be studying mainly MLA, focus on this. If you're going to be studying mainly APA, focus mainly on this. Look at a sample paper. Look at these videos to give you a sense of what these things actually look like. But here's what you need for your actual annotated bibliography. Because we are looking for academic articles, we are going to be using these two formats. So if you are an MLA, you are going to look for putting the last name of the author and then the first name, the full first name, article title in parentheses, journal title in italics, the volume number, and then the issue number, as well as the year and the page range, and then what's called a URL or a DOI. A DOI is a digital object identifier, and if there is a DOI, it will say http://DOI and then give a long number. So that's all the elements you need, but here is an example of what it looks like. So when you have your PDF of your article, you will look for the last name and first name of the author. You will look for the title. You will look for the journal title. And if you're having trouble locating where these are and what they are, feel free to reach out. The same is true for APA, except for it's slightly different. You only do the last name and then you put the first initial. The year comes very quickly afterwards because in the sciences, it's really important when it was published. If it was published long ago, it's no longer really relevant often to medical science or even to other sciences or even business. So then you have the title of article, but not in quotation marks. You have the same thing as italicized journal, but the volume number is also italicized. So you see, you need to follow this extremely specifically. And here is an example of a DOI. So http://doi.org, and then here's the number, whereas this one has a URL. So you'll notice that MLA, you actually put vol and no, and in APA, you italicize it. So there's some various differences. Also, if you have two authors, you're going to be, that's more like for in-text citations. We're going to skip over that. So later on, we're going to be citing other things, video, songs maybe, especially we're definitely going to be citing Instagram posts or Reddit posts. So all those kinds of things, you can click on these various places to find the proper citations for them. Here's just a longer, a more comprehensive chart that demonstrates the difference between the actual long citations that you're going to find if you're doing MLA and APA. So these are ways to kind of start understanding the difference between those two schemas. Now, a lot of you are going to say, I'm not going to make these up. I'm just going to go straight to EasyBib or another kind of citation generator. And here's what I'll say. That is a great place to start. However, well, for example, you can go to the UAB library website and click Cite, and it will give you the MLA or APA citation. But you have to check whether or not it's completely correct using this very specific format, because I use the citation generator on the library website all the time, and it's often slightly wrong. So when I am writing my own articles for publication, I have to go back and check and make sure that it's all correct, because it can't. It's too difficult to get everything perfectly. So if you are still confused and you want to go to better sources, definitely though, use this slideshow, because if it comes from this slideshow, I will honor it. If you are using a format based off of this slideshow, I will honor that. And you can find that on the course slides and Canvas. You could also go to Purdue OWL. That's a very reputable source. You can use the UAB library website. If you go to anything that's from MLA.org or APA.org, you can trust that, and you can go from there. So here's what is due and what you need to accomplish for your annotated bibliography. You first have to choose your 2 articles after you do your searches. You then have to read them, mark them up, map it, take notes, make sure you understand it. Then you're going to choose, am I using MLA or am I using APA? Once you've done that, you need to write your properly formatted citation for the article using the example in this slideshow or from another reputable source. Then you compose the paragraph that includes all the necessary information. Definitely go back to the assignment and make sure that you're answering all the questions for what it asks for in that paragraph. And that's all I have for you today, and I wish you very good luck on finishing up your annotated bibliography.